Hello? Where are you? What's going on? You've got to be kidding me with this nonsense. The voice of Mark on the phone was trembling. It seems he's very upset. What? Why are you getting so worked up? How could I not be worked up? Today is Sam's graduation. On the day of our son's graduation, where the heck are you? Son? As I questioned back with a rising intonation, Mark yelled in frustration. It's Sam. Everyone else is here with their families. It's just me here by myself. Isn't it normal for families to attend graduation ceremonies together? He seems really angry, but that has nothing to do with me right now. I continued without concern. I don't have a family, do I? On the other end of the phone, Mark gasped in a small voice. After 13 years, doesn't he realize what he has been doing or how he has treated me? If that's how it is, fine. Whether he realizes it or not, I will live my life the way I want. I won't let them do whatever they want with me anymore. I'm Kelly. A 40-year-old part-time housewife. My husband, Mark, always says, it must be nice being a housewife. I'm so jealous. We've been married for 13 years. Since the beginning of our marriage, I've been constantly nagged about being a stay-at-home wife. But one shouldn't forget that initially, it was Mark who said, I want you to be a stay-at-home mom for the kids. Did he forget he said that? It's so frustrating. Moreover, after the kids grew up a bit, he started calling stay-at-home moms unemployed parasites. He always treats me like I'm wasting resources. The petty remarks that could be perceived as mean-spirited from Mark increased as the children grew older. It got so bad that I started working part-time a few years ago, but then it was, you're just a part-timer, after all. The treatment hasn't changed. Time flies, and our first son, Roy, is now 18, and second son, Sam, is 15. I say are, but these two aren't biologically related to me. They are Mark's children from a previous relationship. When I married Mark, the kids were 5 and 2 years old, respectively. Time passed quickly, but it was never easy getting here. I've been told that having children might be difficult for me. When Mark asked me out, I nervously shared this with him. I've had irregular periods since I was young, and the doctor said, you won't have trouble living a normal life, but having children might not be possible. So, when I found out Mark had children, I was honestly happy. It's my fault for not being a better judge of character, which has made these kids go through tough times. Mark confessed guiltily once we decided to get married. His previous marriage ended because of his wife's affair, or so I was told. I did my best to comfort him. You're not to blame. As for the kids, don't worry. We'll take good care of them together so they won't feel lonely. Thank you, Kelly. Mark's income isn't exactly high. Ideally, I would have liked to work full-time to help support our finances. But after hearing that, it wasn't an option. Having a mother at home is very important for children. So, Kelly, I want you to be a stay-at-home mom to give the kids a sense of security. All right. Managing just Mark's income was extremely tough. We had to review and cut down our expenses repeatedly. Entertainment and beauty expenses were cut, of course, and I hardly ever bought clothes for myself. But we couldn't let the kids feel disadvantaged. If anything had to be sacrificed, it was going to be my stuff. I truly believed that. At first, Mark seemed appreciative, thanking me for the sacrifices. But eventually, he started to look down on me. You're not exactly beautiful or young, so why don't you put some effort into your appearance? It's embarrassing. I take care of myself as much as I can. But I don't have as much money or time as before we got married. It's sad to hear you say that. Things were different when I was single and only had to think about myself. The more I focused on the children, the less time and money I had for myself. And Mark never lifted a finger to help around the house, using his job as an excuse. I asked for help several times, but he always refused. Kelly, I trust you with these things. Besides, the kitchen is a woman's domain, he'd say. I never said I wanted to be left to do everything myself. Before we got married, I thought he was a manly and wonderful person, but he turned out to be just a domineering husband. The only solace I had was the children. Right after we got married, the kids were 5 and 2 years old. Maybe if they were a bit younger, they wouldn't have been so shy, but especially Roy, he had a strong rejection towards me. I want my mom. You're not my mom. Roy. As I hugged the sobbing Roy, I felt like I was going to cry too. But little by little, it seemed like he started to open up to me. However, that's when unexpected interference came in. It was Mark. He was supposed to be my biggest supporter, but I never thought someone so close could become an enemy. Perhaps Mark couldn't stand that the children were becoming more attached to me than to him. Kelly, you've gained weight, haven't you? Look at that sloppy body. It's proof you can't manage yourself. Don't you guys ever become like that? It's a good thing you're not related by blood. After criticizing my body shape, he went all in on my appearance too. People are finished when they stop caring about how they look. Kelly, you're unemployed. If you don't meet people, you'll lose all sense of beauty. You guys be careful, okay? I couldn't stay silent after being told that much. Hey, can we talk? It's fine to think that in your mind, or to caution me alone. But stop belittling me in front of the kids. I didn't just feel bad for myself, I wanted to avoid the kids learning to speak like Mark at all costs. The kids are still growing and can absorb both good and bad things. Mark, their father, is happily looking down on me, their stepmother. I didn't want to show them that. What's that supposed to mean? You're just upset because it hit too close to home? Don't use the kids as an excuse. It really hurts when you say things like that. But more than that, I'm really worried about the kids' future. Shut up. Don't blame others. I'm not speaking ill of anyone. It's just the truth. It's ridiculous to say that we can't speak the truth. Despite my attempt to explain calmly, Mark flew off the handle and refused to listen to me after that. In fact, his bad-mouthing only escalated. Whenever I tried to discipline the children, Mark would almost always interrupt. Roy, look here. You've still got left in your dish. Let's eat everything up nicely, okay? It was when I casually pointed out the pasta scattered in Roy's dish during a meal. A heavy sigh came from next to me, and Mark grumbled unhappily. All high and mighty with your nagging, even though you don't earn a dime. It was the usual pattern. Mark looked at Roy and Sam, tilting his head as if seeking agreement. It's not nagging. It's just a matter of manners. I'm doing this so they won't have trouble in the future. It's quite something for you to care so much about kids that aren't even yours. I felt my blood boil. What kind of things is this man saying in front of young children? I was so appalled I couldn't find the words. I felt so pathetic. From that day on, I started to avoid clashing with Mark and began to watch his mood. Because I didn't want the kids to see us arguing as much as possible. Mark is easy to read. If you praise him, he stays in a good mood. I knew it was the wrong approach, but I couldn't think of anything else. The easiest thing would be to get a divorce, but what about Roy and Sam? I couldn't abandon them. So, making life as peaceful as possible was my top priority. And before I knew it, 13 years had passed, and here we are. The once young brothers have been completely influenced by Mark, and while their appearances may differ, their thought processes are just like Mark's. Because Mark belittles me in front of the kids, they think it's normal to do the same. They started belittling me openly. Hold on. When Roy called out to me and I turned around, he said with a frown. Friends are coming over tomorrow. Go somewhere else. You know, in case they see you, it'd be embarrassing. If only I had a younger and prettier mom, we wouldn't have to go through this hassle. It's so annoying. All right. It wasn't just teenage embarrassment. I realized he genuinely felt ashamed of me. Since similar remarks kept being repeated, I had become accustomed to being hurt. Hey, leave some pocket money before you go out. And did you iron the clothes I asked for? Oh, and the deadline for the college application documents is coming up. Take care of it, will you? Despite saying how embarrassing it would be to be seen with me, they sure didn't hesitate to ask for favors. This trait, too, seems to have been inherited from Mark. Then, Sam chimed in from the side. Hey, did you check out the tutoring school for me? Oh, and there's the club activity carpool tomorrow. Without waiting for my reply, both Roy and Sam returned to their rooms. To them, asking me for favors was something taken for granted. Without a shred of gratitude. It's as if the concept doesn't even occur to them anymore. At dinner, Mark, the root of all troubles and the role model for his sons, looked at me quizzically and started. You should start earning some money soon. Huh? Mark exaggeratedly sighed and slouched his shoulders. Do you even realize how much I've been supporting you? Despite everything, I've been lenient until now. How many years have you been unemployed now? Hey, have you thought about it at all? His words irritated me, and I put down my chopsticks. I'm not unemployed. I've been working part-time since Sam entered elementary school. That's right. When the kids were preschoolers, I stayed home, feeling sorry for them. But once Sam started elementary school, I began working part-time during weekday mornings. However, Sam frequently fell ill, forcing me to apologize at work and take days off. When I had to take off a whole week, I desperately asked Mark. Just for one day, or even half a day. Can't you look after Sam? I thought he would agree to substitute for me for just one day, considering I had always been the one to stay home. But his response was irresponsibly dismissive. Huh? Impossible. I'm busy with work. You should be able to figure that out, right? No way. Why should I? To him, I'm busy with work meant he didn't regard my part-time job as actual work. I was aware of Mark's low regard for my part-time job from that moment, but being treated as unemployed still was unbearable. I do work decently. I earn about $3,600 a month. Countering the unemployed remark, not just Mark but also Roy and Sam started snickering. You say that so proudly. It's just pitiful. That's right. How can you even brag about that? The audacity is impressive. Mark, encouraged by their words, puffed up proudly as if he had one. Exactly, they're right. Now that these guys don't need much from us, Kelly should contribute more to the household. You're the only one not related by blood here. If it stays like this, you won't be acknowledged as part of the family. Watching the three of them laughing together, something inside me that I had been holding together crumbled. This is it. I can't take it anymore. For my own sake, I can no longer force myself. Once I fulfill my last obligation, I'll leave this house. That day, I made a firm vow. Sam's graduating from middle school tomorrow, huh? It makes me feel relieved. Months after I made my decision, Roy's college admission was secured, and Sam was about to have his middle school graduation ceremony the next day. At night, after the kids had gone to their rooms, I was washing dishes while Mark happily drank behind me. Man, I gotta be honest, before marrying you, I was really struggling. Wasn't sure what to do. Possibly feeling good from the alcohol, Mark chatted away. My mom, who was looking after Roy and Sam, said she couldn't do it anymore. I was contemplating putting them in some facility. But marrying you just at the right time was such a stroke of luck. I really am lucky, huh? I had vaguely heard about this from my mother-in-law not long after we got married. Mark had taken custody of the kids, but their care was mostly left to my mother-in-law. It must have been physically demanding for her, nearing her 60s, to take care of two young children. Eventually, she couldn't handle it anymore and told Mark to take responsibility. That's when our marriage was decided. From the beginning to the end, I've been too convenient for you. It's astonishing, even to me. What's that? You sulking? Don't be so annoying. Once they both get jobs, how about we go to a spa or something? That should make you happy. I clattered the dishes loudly on purpose, pretending not to hear, and let Mark's words wash over me. After finishing the dishes, I sat opposite Mark and kept pouring him drinks. Come on, drink up. Tomorrow's Sam's big graduation day, after all. Oh. Right. You're being thoughtful for once. Mark, looking pleased, his face flushed red, kept bringing the cup to his mouth one after another. Eventually, there were so many bottles and cans, it was unclear how much he had drunk. The next day, I was on the train, feeling refreshed. I wonder if the graduation ceremony has started by now. Muttering to myself, I gazed out of the train window, enjoying the peaceful moment. When was the last time I felt this calm? Suddenly, I checked my phone, which was on silent mode, and saw a huge number of missed calls. Most of them were from Mark. There were also a few from Roy. Judging by the missed calls, they must have been in a panic this morning. Normally, Roy and Sam are strong in the mornings. Even if I didn't wake them, they would come down by themselves when it was time. So, presumably, one of them would have woken Mark, who was probably still asleep at the table. Out of mercy, I had left several alarm clocks around Mark. So, I figured he wouldn't oversleep and miss the graduation. Well, the problem starts there. I had left the suit, tie, socks, and all that he needed for the graduation ceremony in the closet, having left the house. As the greatest act of mercy, everything was either washed or dry cleaned. Normally, that would be enough for someone to get ready by themselves. But Mark is not normal. After relying on me for the past 13 years, he probably doesn't even know which suit is appropriate for a graduation ceremony. Normally, you'd prepare the day before, wouldn't you? Certainly, or rather definitely, Mark wouldn't do such a thing. Because even if he was drunk or passed out, there was always me to clean up after him. If the person they relied on suddenly disappeared, what would they think? I'm curious about their expressions. Were they panicking? Maybe they were furious. Either way, it's no longer my concern. After a while, the train arrived at my destination, and I got off with my belongings. As I passed through the ticket gates and turned off my phone's silent mode, it rang immediately. It was Mark calling. Hello? Where are you? What's going on? You've got to stop joking around. Mark's voice trembled through the phone. What? Why are you so worked up? How can I not be worked up? It's Sam's graduation today. On our son's graduation day, where the heck are you? Son? When I asked back with a rising intonation, Mark yelled, agitated. It's Sam. Everyone else is here with their families. And it's just me here? Normally, families attend graduation ceremonies together. And another thing. You didn't even prepare the clothes, did you? If my mom hadn't come, it would have been a disaster. To his complete blame-shifting and venting, I responded calmly. At your age, and for something like this, to still rely on your mother, I think your way of thinking is the real disaster. What did you say? Mark exclaimed, sounding utterly infuriated. But such things are no longer my concern. I continued unfazed. And, family? What's that about? Huh? I mean... I cut off Mark's words and stated clearly. I don't have a family, do I? On the other end of the phone, Mark gasped in surprise. These past 13 years, I don't recall ever being treated like family by you all. You can't be serious. What are you talking about? Living together, eating together, that's what makes a family. Being constantly belittled for my looks or called an unemployed parasite, and above all, being used like a maid by you all, and now you talk of family? What are you even saying? Are you out of your mind? After my rapid-fire response, there was a brief silence, and then the call abruptly ended. A few minutes later, Roy called. The timing was too perfect. Likely, Mark had told Roy something. Hey, I heard you had a fight with Dad. But don't you think you went too far? Dad was furious. If you apologize now, he might forgive you, so just come back and apologize, okay? Otherwise, dinner will be late. I was dumbfounded and held my head in my hands. I didn't know how Mark had relayed our conversation to Roy. But both Mark and Roy believed they were completely blameless. And in their hearts, as long as they were okay, that was all that mattered. That explained Roy's earlier remarks. He didn't even question why I had left, even missing Sam's graduation ceremony. He was more worried about his dinner. Me, apologize? Why should I? And for dinner, can't you guys manage on your own? My response seemed to have hit a nerve. And Roy's tone got harsher. What's with that attitude? That's so irresponsible. Just leaving like that. Do you get it? Mom has been fed and supported by Dad, you know? I've thought about this for a while, but you really should be more grateful. Mark's words echoed in my head. Who do you think has been providing for you? I had heard this line many times. It seems Mark's favorite phrases had deeply penetrated the kids, almost like a curse. It was incredibly outdated. Did they even realize how much trouble they were setting themselves up for in the future? I let out a small sigh and said to Roy, You and Sam are just like Mark, aren't you? Huh? What's that supposed to mean suddenly? Of course, we are. We're family. Right. Then you should be careful. You're not suited for modern marriage. Roy made a dumbfounded sound again. Like Mark, he lacked self-awareness. What? Just because you're upset, you're saying absurd things. His voice trembled when he got flustered, just like his father. Well, fine. Anyway, I have other things I want to discuss, so I'll be making a final visit soon. Could you let Mark know? Wait, what do you mean by final visit? Hey, wait! I can't wait. Goodbye. After hanging up, the phone kept ringing persistently, but I decided to ignore it completely until it finally stopped. A month later, I visited Mark's house for one last settlement. As I rang the doorbell, Mark appeared with loud footsteps. Kelly, you came back! I believed it. I really did. Mark looked somewhat haggard after a month. Perhaps it was his unkempt appearance. His clothes were scruffy and dirty, and his complexion wasn't great. Above all, he emitted an utterly exhausted vibe, lacking any vitality. As he approached and grabbed my shoulder, I quickly shook off his hand. Don't touch me, please. We're no longer family or anything. Huh? What do you mean, Kelly? We're just separated for a cool down, aren't we? Nobody had said that. It was all in Mark's imagination, tailored to suit him. It's astounding how he could come up with such convenient thoughts. In a way, it's impressive. I was so happy thinking you'd come back. That's absurd. On the contrary. I'm here to settle things once and for all. Settle? Mark asked back with a twitching smile. I nodded firmly. I want a divorce. Let's discuss the division of assets thoroughly. Entering the living room, there was no one else around. Roy and Sam, supposed to be off, were nowhere to be seen. Where are the kids? They're in their rooms. They shouldn't know you're coming. Should I call them now? That's fine. It wasn't the time for a pleasant family chat. What was about to start was a messy divorce discussion. Yet, just leaving the house empty for a month, how had it changed so drastically? Clothes were strewn everywhere, the table cluttered with finished plates and plastic bags. And the sink was so packed it was impossible to see what was at the bottom. Cleaning here was out of the question. Ignoring the messy room, I sat down on a chair after moving some things aside. Shall we begin? I wanted to settle this as quickly as possible. My mind won't change. Please, anything but divorce. This past month, we realized how important you were. Shouting, Mark might have swayed the old me. But over the years, I've grown stronger. Such child's play won't work on me anymore. Right, the slave who took care of the housework and served everyone has gone, hasn't she? Slave, you say? Mark averted his gaze. I smiled back at him. You've always looked down on housework. It must have been hard, right? Full of tedious tasks. I thought you and your clumsiness and lack of patience could never handle it. What? What did you say? Mark glared at me sharply. In his excitement, his nostrils flared as usual. If I wasn't so busy with work, I could easily do housework. It's just that I'm too busy with work. Must be nice for you, only having to work part-time. You wouldn't understand my struggles. Well, I wouldn't want to. The struggles of someone who remarried, pushed his children onto his new partner, and cheated with another woman? No, thank you. Huh? His face, which had been red with anger just moments before, suddenly drained of color, turning pale. Cheating? What are you talking about? Thought you wouldn't get caught? I knew everything. Mark continued with trembling lips. You knew, and yet, why act normal all this time only to talk about divorce now? It was all for the kids. Ever since the doctor told me I couldn't have children of my own, I thought I'd never be a mother. But marrying Mark gave me the chance to be a mother to Roy and Sam. Mark's cheating, his verbal abuse, the kids' dismissive attitudes towards me. I can't count how many times I wanted to just divorce him and walk away. But I persevered because I loved those two boys. That's why I decided to hang in there at least until Sam graduated. No way! That's a lie! Turning around at the sound, I saw Roy and Sam standing there, stunned. Their faces are even paler than Mark's. Mom, I don't expect anything from you two. I don't want apologies. Instead, from now on, I won't be there. There won't be someone to do things for you for free anymore. Roy and Sam awkwardly shut their mouths. I turned back to Mark. You're still cheating, aren't you? Well, his hesitation to deny it was as good as an admission. If you agree to divorce now, I won't bother your partner. What? But if you refuse, I'll go after your partner and even to your workplace if I have to. What's it going to be? Which do you prefer? Mark pondered deeply. Sweat beading on his forehead and dripping down his cheeks to the floor. Are you really not coming back? He looked up at me with eyes brimming with tears. Yes. Absolutely not. She can't do housework at all. She doesn't work, and remarrying her offers no benefits. Mark stammered, trying to justify his actions. He seemed incapable of realizing his mistake. Benefits? When will you learn? You shouldn't seek benefits in a family. Let me ask you, what have you given me? All I remember is suffering. I'm sorry. Don't demand from others what you lack for yourself. My years of pent-up frustration might have added extra force to my words. Mark screamed and then agreed to the divorce. He signed the divorce papers I had brought, just as I had instructed. After that, the divorce was finalized smoothly. Interestingly, after the divorce, his affair partner quickly dumped him. I was only interested because he was someone else's. After the divorce, he's just a single old man. Mark, usually so full of self-confidence, seemed genuinely depressed by this. Being rejected by both his ex-wife and affair partner as having no benefits and no appeal must have been a significant blow. He didn't want to accept the plain truth. The shock seemed to linger, causing him to make mistake after mistake at work. The kids, Roy and Sam, appeared to have changed somewhat. Especially Roy, who was desperately trying to change. Apparently, his motivation was a harsh breakup with his first girlfriend, who told him, "I don't need a boyfriend who's so behind the times. I'm at my limit and have no intention of getting involved, but if they can change, I hope they do." However, given their current state, it'll be quite a challenge. Now, I've started a new life near my hometown. Living alone for the first time since before my marriage. Taking this as an opportunity, I've quit my previous part-time job and started looking for full-time employment near my new home. It might be tough given my age, but living alone on a part-time salary is too dull. I was overworked before, but being idle doesn't suit me either. If I can't find full-time work, I might consider juggling multiple part-time jobs. Or maybe I'll find a new hobby. That's what I've been thinking about these days.